What is up, everyone? So another video is probably coming out very shortly, either after or before this. I was repairing a generator, and the tank, as you can tell, is a tad rusty. Now, the top of the tank you're not really going to get very thoroughly, but the inside of it you can. The top, I'm going to take like a wire brush, maybe on a drill or a Dremel tool even, and just kind of go over it and clean out that nastiness that's in there. But in the meantime, we need to get rid of the water or the rust. It's been about 24 hours, maybe a little longer, since I put this in there. Basically what I did is this. Just put vinegar, nothing more. It's 5% acidity, so it's not very acidic. You can use muriatic acid. I don't like using it because I don't like using acid in the garage just for safety purposes. There's garage dog and other reasons, but this is a very safe, mind you, probably longer process, but it's, in my opinion, it's probably the best one. If you're using muriatic acid, you're going to have to be a lot more attentive to it. It can dissolve a hole directly into the tank if you're not careful, especially depending on the condition. So if it's really bad and you're thinking you need a lot of acid to, eat everything away, at that point, if you're at that point where you're needing acid, you're probably just going to have to get a new tank. That's my opinion, because if it's that thin and that crusty inside, your chances of getting it back to normal are pretty slim. But this video is going to be how to remove rust from a tank using the vinegar method. I was reading online, people also say molasses will work. I'm not really sure why someone would think about using molasses. Maybe they looked at the chemical properties of it. I'm not really sure, but I feel like that would just cause more of a mess than anything else. And what if you left some in there by mistake? They are burning sugar, more or less, in your engine, and everyone knows that's not a good idea. So vinegar, in my opinion, is just the best one. So after I take this out, which down here, it's a little hard to tell, there's a connection for the fuel line that has no on and off. So I put a piece of fuel line, and I took a pair of vice grips and I crimped off the end, and now, just in case it started leaking, I put it in the bucket, and to my knowledge so far it looks to be pretty clean. I like using the bucket just because if it starts leaking, I don't really like to have leak all over the floor or the table or anything, wherever you're going to put it. So that would be my recommendation. Understandably, it's not always possible, but if possible, get a bucket, maybe a tote. I've used a couple of those, and just to kind of put it inside. Next, after I drain it, you need to rinse it out very thoroughly. I'm going to put a lot of water in there, going to drain it. The good thing about vinegar is that it's a lot easier to dispose of than acid as well. Yet again, another good reason. And it's reusable. So I'm going to put this, drain it directly back into the containers that they came in, and I'm going to be using it again. You could probably get a good 4 or 5 times depending on how bad it is on 1 gallon. And it's cheaper. You can also use Evaporust. That will do a pretty good job, but it's so expensive. I mean, 2 gallons to do this would be like $60. I think it's $30 a gallon, maybe 20, so maybe 40. I don't know. This is $1 each. So at that point, I am going to take these nuts and bolts and about maybe double this amount. Put it in there and shake it for about 10 minutes, put some ear protection on, and just kind of go crazy. If you have anything that can spin, maybe take like a quad, jack up the back end and tape that or secure it to a tire and just let it idle. That could be a good alternative, but you don't want to do it fast, so pick your solution on that one, I suppose. But you're going to want to do that. Now you're going to notice a couple variations of colors on these. Pick bolts or nuts that you are not going to care that you won't have anymore. These are garage sale bolts. I picked them up in a big tin, and variety of sizes, didn't need them, so I bought them for like 50 cents I think, and now they're my bolts for tanks. You want to make sure that you have sharp edges on everything. You don't want rounded. As you can tell, there's really nothing rounded on there. I think probably the most round item on here is this, but even then the top is pretty sharp. So I'm going to put double about that in there, shake it all about. Then I'm going to take my pressure washer with a 15-degree nozzle. I'm going to spray it all around. Now this is the hard part. I can't really get my pressure washer in there and get over here, but hopefully with the shaking I'm going to really focus on places that are really hard to get to. This annoying tank has this little cutoff for the spark plug, I believe, so this area in particular is going to be difficult to get to, and right here, I can imagine right here being a rough one, so that's probably not going to be too clean, unfortunately, but clean enough. At that point I will bring you back and we'll take a look at the solution. You might have to do it again. I'll bring some quick videos of me shaking and spraying and everything, so you'll see all that, but I just want to go over it because I'm probably not going to say it. And then once we're done, I have a solution for whatever application you're needing to kind of make sure this doesn't happen again, kind of best case and worst case scenarios. Okay, let the struggle begin. This is probably the worst part about doing any of this. I know, I'm going to get another pair and crimp it off towards the other end. I'm going to have to do that. That's just going to be aggravating. Let's just put it in the bucket. It's off. Luckily it's a clean bucket. Benefits of keeping your paint buckets. And then later, I'm just going to use this big funnel. I have to widen that. Oh, it's fine. Yeah, I'll grind some off to the center. Let that drain. Pour back in the containers. So while that drains, go over again the reason why I don't like acid. I believe this plastic is okay for acid, but you're gonna have to put it back in its acid safe container that it came in afterwards. And that's gonna be really difficult, and you're gonna want to wear gloves. At the very least, about elbow length, some type of rubber or plastic, and ideally you'll be wearing a second layer, maybe like a double them up or whatnot. It's not a very strong acid, don't get me wrong, but it can burn still. So I don't recommend doing that. And again, another reason why I don't like acid. This, I'm just going to pour it back into its respective containers. Okay, so that's pretty much good to go, except for a little bit here. I took some bath gas, which, you know, just one of these. But all around, be careful not to burn anything, like you don't want to burn straight through. But you also don't want to leave it wet. You want it to be dry. I've already pressure washed it, and I did all that. So now, I think the only thing I really need to do is kind of take care of this. The tank is still a little warm, so. You ever notice those little brushes that come in a kit and you wonder why you need something this small? This is the reason why. Pretty good. Nothing's gonna be perfect, but it's pretty decent. And then, there we go. Just in case there's a little moisture left in there. Or the dust from the grinding. I just feel like hot steam coming out of there. Give it a good blowout. Okay, so now I think I still see a little bit of water. Let's give it a shake and see. Yep. Okay. Well, I'm gonna use more MAP gas and be right back. Okay, so looks to be dry in there. So that should be pretty good. So some videos, if you see, will say you don't have to use any gas, but at the very least use propane, and this is the reason why. You want to get it hot and you want to dry it off very fast, because if you don't and just leave it in the sun, unless you live on Mercury, it's not going to dry very fast and you very well might start rusting again. Will it be a lot? No. Did you just spend time cleaning? Yeah. Do you want to have it in there? No. So, it looks pretty good. Let me show you. Granted, you didn't see what it looked like before, but let's just put it this way. It was like looking at this towel all the way around. A little hard to tell, but I can see bare metal. There's a couple chunks here and there, but it is 95% better, maybe even 98. It was pretty bad. It was almost to the point where I even started looking at buying a new tank and realizing that it was going to be too expensive for the project that I was working on. So fixing it was. So next part, what do you do after? This is going on a generator that's going to be in a garage. It's never really going to get below like 50, maybe 45 if it's a really cold day. But with me working in the garage, with it being attached to the house, in the wintertime I usually have like a heater running, so even in the daytime it doesn't get too cold, and then it will kind of just keep the heat throughout the evening. But if you are in an area, or going to store this in an area that is not in any type of controlled environment like that, you're going to want to do one of two things. The best one, and I'll link a description below, I don't have it right now because I'm not going to do it to this one, is get like a tank sealant. They make some for mainly motorcycles, but it's this really, really hard epoxy almost that you put in there, coat it really well on it, drain off the excess, and then at that point you let it cure. Once it cures like rock. And if you covered it thoroughly enough, it will never rust again. And if it has a small pinhole, it could potentially even fix the pinhole. But pinhole is the maximum it's going to do. They make tank repair kits, but it's more like a, you know, that JB weld that comes in for like, it's more like a Play-Doh type like substance. It's kind of like that. Bondo, there we go, perfect example. It's like thick Bondo. But at that point, you can leave it outside, you can leave it anywhere. If it's going to be inside of a controlled area, you don't really have to worry about it. This one I'm not going to coat because of that reason. It's never going to do that, and the reason why is this. If it's warm, it's not going to really condense, there's not going to be any moisture that's really going to bother it, and not going to be too much of a problem. If it's outside, when it gets cold and hot and wet, it can condense, water will form, rust will appear again, and literally within a year, it will look like you didn't touch this. If you cover it, that'd be fine. It won't happen again. I do that to all my rototillers that have a metal tank. If you have a plastic tank, obviously you don't have to worry about it, but anything with a metal tank, coat it with that sealant, and it will last probably longer than a tank. The outside will rust before the inside will. The other alternative, there's two. One is kind of okay, the other one is also kind of okay. You can fill this thing to the tippity top with non-ethanol gasoline, and I mean non-ethanol. I don't mean treated, because there's still ethanol in it. Non-ethanol. At that point, it will always remain full. You never really have an option to rust, and it should be fine. But then you have to use at least a tank a year. And the generator, if your power goes out routinely, probably not a problem. A rototiller that you rototill a 300, 400 square foot garden once a year, that's going to be a problem. So, you know, that, keep an eye out on that, because even non-ethanol fuel has its age limits. Next, if you are unable to get non-ethanol fuel, which you could go to Home Depot and buy 2-cycle non-ethanol. Not the best, but at least it's non-ethanol. But let's say that's not an option for you. You can put oil in it. It's a very old thing to do. It's something that if you were to see, like, find like old engines, a lot of people do that. They put them away because of this reason. Old motor oil. Take like a 5-quart or whatever and fill this up with it. But know that every time that you start it up, you're going to have to drain the oil, let it sit, let it drip out, take the tank off, probably wash it out. At the very least, you're going to have to let it drip and dry. Or not dry, but at least puddle to the point where there's a small film on every end. Then put gasoline, but then you're burning gasoline oil. So that one's gonna work, but it's a lot of work. So figure out which one's the best one. Ideally, you would just put the sealant in. Now, again, if this is in a controlled environment, you don't really have to worry about it. I'm just going to leave it empty. It's not going to be too much of a problem. I'm not too worried about it. This is how you fix a rusty tank. If it has any holes in it, definitely repair them if you can. If not, then just buy a new one. But if it's just a white rust to the point where you can't see any bare metal and it's not super flaky, this will work. If it is super flaky, don't even bother. It's just a replacement. Excuse me. Okay, well, if you like what you see, keep on watching. Definitely subscribe. Throw a thumbs up. That helps me a lot. If this helped you, let me know what you're using this information on. And if it does help you, and you know anyone else, tell them to watch my little channel, and we'll help each other out here. Okay, well, have a good rest of your day. Bye. Okay, so the tank is on. This is the generator it came off of. And as you can tell, there's liquid in there. Well, gas. So it's even less forgiving than water. There's no leaks. It's dirty, I know, but there's no leaks. Generator runs fine, so there's not like a bunch of mildew going towards the carburetor. Put the lid on. So yeah, so this is, just the final step in the tank process. So I will catch everyone later, and hopefully this helps you out.